Hansol Kim looked around the classroom and felt like he was in a dream. The room was huge and filled with the strangest creatures he had ever seen. Floating lights moved slowly across the ceiling. Strange music played softly in the air. Everything smelled like flowers and clean rain. He sat next to Yujin Park, who was writing notes on a device that looked like crystal. Behind them, Wu Bin Li was trying not to stare at their teacher. Next to Wu Bin, Hai Wen Choi was watching everything. With wide eyes, they were the only humans in the class. Professor Velther stood at the front of the room. The professor looked like a tall tree made of blue crystal. Light moved through the crystal body like water. When Professor Velther spoke, the voice sounded like wind chimes. "Today we will talk about staying alive in different places," Professor Velther said. "Each world has its own dangers. Each species has learned to deal with these dangers." Around the room, different aliens nodded their heads. Some had heads that looked like flowers. Others had bodies made of gas that changed colors. A few looked like big insects with shiny shells. Pri X raised one of her forearms. She looked like a giant ant, but with prettier colors. Her shell was green and gold. "Professor, on my world, we have weather machines. They make sure it never gets too hot or too cold. Is this the same on other worlds?" "Very good question, Crix," Professor Velther said. The crystal body glowed brighter. "Who else can tell us about their world?" Thyman started to speak. Thyman was made of purple gas that moved like smoke. "On my world, we have energy streams that carry us where we need to go. The streams are always safe. Computer systems watch them all the time." Rala made a soft bubbling sound. She lived in a tank of blue water that moved with her. She looked like a fish, but with arms and big eyes. "My world has city builders who make sure no dangerous fish come near our homes. We have been safe for thousands of years." Hansol looked at Yujin. She looked back at him with the same worried face. They both looked at Wu Bin and Haiwan. All four humans were thinking the same thing. These aliens had no idea what real danger was. Professor Velther asked more questions. The aliens talked about their safe worlds with happy voices. They talked about machines that controlled weather. They talked about computers that watched for problems. They talked about governments that moved dangerous animals far away. The humans stayed quiet. "What about you, Hansol?" Professor Velther asked. "Can you tell us about your world?" Hansol felt everyone looking at him. Dozens of alien eyes stared. At him, some eyes were big and round. Some were small and sharp. Some glowed in the dark. "Earth is a Class M planet," Hansol said slowly. "It has many different places. Mountains, oceans, forests, deserts." "How interesting," Professor Velther said. "And what systems keep you safe from environmental dangers?" Yu Jin moved in her chair. Wu Bin looked down at his hands. Hai Wen bit her lip. We have buildings," Hansol said, "and clothes for different weather." Crix's antenna moved with excitement. "Oh, like our climate suits. Do your weather machines work through the clothes?" "Not exactly," Hansol said. The aliens kept talking about their worlds. They talked about perfect temperatures. They talked about computers that knew everything. They talked about safe food that was made in clean factories. Thyman changed to a bright yellow color. "On my world, the biggest danger is when an energy stream moves too fast. But that only happens once every few hundred years. And we have warning systems." "On my world," Rala said, "sometimes a fish swims too close to the city, but the protection fields push it away. No one gets hurt." Crix clicked her mandibles. "The worst thing on my world is when it rains too much. But the water control systems fix that in one day." The humans listened to all of this with growing shock. These aliens lived in worlds that were like big, safe gardens. Everything was controlled. Everything was watched. Everything was safe. Professor Velther's body glowed with soft blue light. Next week, each student will tell us about a dangerous situation from their home world. You will explain how your people deal with this danger. This will help us understand how different species solve problems. The aliens made happy sounds. They seemed excited about this easy homework. This sounds fun, Crix said. I will talk about the time I got lost in food production Area 7. I had to find the guidance beacon. I will talk about the energy storm last year, Diamond said. It made traveling slow for 3 days. Rala bubbled happily. I will talk about the time a big fish came near our city. The protection field had to work extra hard. Hansol looked at his friends again. Yu Jin was very pale. Wu Bin was shaking his head slowly. Haiwan looked like she wanted to hide. How could they explain Earth to these aliens? How could they talk about a world where dangerous things happened every day? Where people died from weather, animals, diseases, and accidents? Where there were no safety systems to save everyone? These aliens had never seen real danger. They had never been afraid for their lives. They had never had to fight to survive. Professor Velther dismissed the class. The aliens left the room talking excitedly about their homework. They spoke about their safe worlds and their easy problems. The 4 humans stayed in their seats. What are we going to do? Yu Jin whispered. We can't. Tell them the truth, Wu Bin said quietly. It would scare them. But we have to say something, Haiwan said. Hansol looked around the empty classroom. The floating lights still moved slowly across the ceiling. The flower smell was still in the air. Everything was peaceful and safe, just like the aliens' worlds. Maybe we can talk about something small, Hansol said. Something that won't frighten them. Like what? Yu Jin asked. Hansol thought about Earth. He thought about storms that could destroy cities. He thought about earthquakes that could kill thousands. He thought about animals that hunted humans. He thought about diseases that had no cure. I don't know, he said finally. The 4 humans left the classroom together. They walked through the hallways of the space station. Everything around them was clean and bright and safe. Alien students moved past them, talking and laughing about their easy lives. None of them knew that they were walking next to survivors of a death world. None of them knew that humans were different. Not yet. 1 week later, Hansol sat in the same classroom with sweaty palms. The 4 humans had spent days trying to think of something safe to talk about. Everything they thought of seemed too scary for their alien classmates. Professor Velther's crystal body sparkled in the soft light. Today, we will hear about dangerous situations from your home worlds. Who would like to go first? Crix raised her arm quickly. Her green and gold shell shined as she stood up. I will tell my story, Professor. She walked to the front of the class. Her 4 legs clicked on the smooth floor. Last year, I got lost in food production Area 7. This area makes protein blocks from my city. The other aliens listened with interest. They made soft sounds to show they cared. I was visiting with my learning group, Crix continued. But I went down the wrong hallway. The walls all looked the same. I could not find my group. Thyman changed to a worried orange color. How scary. What did you do? I walked for maybe 10 minutes, Crix said. Then I remembered my training. I found the nearest wall panel and called for help. The guidance system showed me a map. I followed the glowing line back to my group. How long were you lost? Rala asked from her water tank. About 15 minutes, Crix said proudly. The guidance system works very well. No one stays lost for long on my world. Professor Velther's body glowed with approval. Excellent problem-solving, Crix. You used your training and the safety systems correctly. Crix sat down with a happy click of her mandibles. Diamond floated forward next. The purple gas moved like slow smoke. I will tell about the energy storm on my world. Please continue, Professor Velther said. Every few years, the energy streams that carry us get disturbed, Thyman explained. The streams move faster and change direction. This makes traveling difficult. The other aliens nodded their heads. They understood this kind of problem. When the storm happened, I was traveling to see my family. The stream I was riding started moving too fast. I could not get off at my stop. What did you do? An alien with flower petals for a head asked. The stream carried me to the next station, Thyman said. I had to wait there for 3 days until the storm ended. The station had food and rest areas. Other travelers were there too. We waited together. 3 whole days? Crix said with shock. That must have been very hard. It was boring, Thyman admitted. But the station workers took good care of us. They gave us news updates every hour. When the storm ended, I took the next stream home. Professor Velther made a pleased sound. You showed good patience, Thyman. Waiting for safe conditions was the right choice. Now it was Rala's turn. She bubbled softly as she spoke. I will tell about the big fish that came to our city. The class leaned forward to listen. In my world, we live in cities under the water, Rala explained. The cities have protection fields that keep dangerous fish away. But sometimes a very big fish gets confused. How big? Someone asked. As big as a transport ship, Rala said. It had lost its way and swam toward our city. The protection field tried to push it away, but the fish was too big and too confused. The aliens made worried sounds. The city managers turned up the protection field to maximum power, Rala continued. They also sent guide ships to lead the fish away. It took 2 hours, but the fish finally swam away from our city. Were you scared? Crix asked. A little, Rala said. But everyone knew the city managers would fix the problem. They always do. No dangerous fish has ever gotten into a city. Professor Velther nodded with approval. Good work by your city managers. Now, let us hear from our human students. Hansal felt his heart start beating faster. Every alien eye in the room turned to look at him. Yu Jin, Wu Bin, and Hai Wan all looked nervous too. Yu Jin, Professor Velther said. Would you like to share first? Yu Jin stood up slowly. Her hands shook a little. Earth has ... many different environments, she began carefully. Yes, you mentioned that before, Professor Velther said kindly. Please tell us about a dangerous situation. Yu Jin looked at her human friends. They had decided to start with something small, something that would not scare anyone. Earth has different weather in different places, Yu Jin said. Sometimes the weather changes quickly. The aliens nodded. This sounded normal to them. Once I was walking outside when it started to rain very hard, Yu Jin continued. The rain was so heavy, I could not see very far. Did you call for weather? Control? Thyman asked. He had changed to a curious green color. We ... We don't have weather control, Yu Jin said quietly. The room became very quiet. The aliens looked confused. What do you mean? Crix asked. How do you control dangerous weather without weather control systems? We don't control the weather, Yu Jin said. We just wait for it to end. Rala bubbled with confusion. But what if the weather becomes too dangerous? What if it hurts people? Yu Jin looked at Hansal for help. He stood up and walked to stand next to her. On Earth, we build strong buildings, Hansal said. We go inside when the weather is bad. We wait until it is safe to come out. But who decides when it is safe? Professor Velther asked. We ... We decide for ourselves, Hansal said. The aliens looked at each other with worried expressions. The idea of making their own safety decisions seemed strange to them. What other kinds of weather happen on your world? Rala asked. Eugene and Han Sol looked at each other. They had only talked about rain. They had not even mentioned storms, snow, heat waves, or tornadoes. Well, Eugene said slowly, sometimes it gets very hot or very cold. How hot? Thyman asked. Hot enough to hurt people, Eugene said quietly. The aliens made shocked sounds. And how cold? Crix asked. Cold enough to also hurt people, Hansal said. Now the aliens looked really worried. Thyman flickered between orange and red colors. Crix's antennae twitched nervously. Rala moved deeper into her water tank. But surely you have climate control in your living areas? Professor Velther asked. Some places do, Ubin said, joining his friends. But not everywhere. And not always. What do you mean, not always? Crix asked. Sometimes the climate control breaks, High One said, standing up too. Sometimes there is no power for it. The room filled with worried whispers. The aliens talked to each other in their own languages. They had never heard of people living without perfect climate control. Professor Velther raised one crystal arm for quiet. This is very interesting, the professor said. Are there other challenges on your world? The four humans looked at each. Other. They had only talked about weather. They had not even started talking about the really dangerous things on Earth. Yes, Hansal said finally. There are other things. What kind of other things? Rala asked. But she sounded like she was not sure she wanted to know. Han-Sol thought about all the things they had not mentioned yet. Wild animals, diseases, natural disasters, wars, accidents. Maybe we should talk about those next time, Eugene said quickly. But it was too late. The aliens were already curious and worried. Professor Velther's crystal body was glowing brighter with interest. No, please continue, Professor Velther said. We are all learning something new today. Hansal looked around the room at all the alien faces. They were scared just from hearing about rain and hot weather. How would they react to learning about the real dangers of Earth? Well, Hansal said slowly, Earth also has animals. The word animals hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Hansal looked at the worried faces of his alien classmates and knew there was no going back now. What kind of animals? Thyman asked. His purple gas was turning a nervous yellow. Color. Hansal decided to start with something that seemed small. Well, there are animals called wolves. Wolves? Crix repeated slowly. What do wolves do? They They hunt other animals for food, Hansal said carefully. The aliens made confused. Sounds. Rala bubbled quietly in her tank. Hunt? What does that mean? Eugene stepped forward to help. It means they chase other animals and eat them. The room became completely silent. Every alien stared at the humans with shock. You mean they kill other animals? Professor Velther asked. The crystal body was glowing very bright now. Yes, Hansal said quietly. Crix's four arms began to shake. But But where are the safety officers? Where are the protection systems? There aren't any, Wu Bin said from his seat. Wolves live in the wild. They do what they want. The wild? Thyman flickered between three different colors. What is the wild? High One stood up. Places on Earth where no people live. Places with no buildings or machines. Just animals and plants. And these wolves live in these places? Rala asked with a scared voice. Yes, Eugene said. Many animals live in the wild. How many wolves are there? Crix asked. Han-Sol thought about it. Maybe 60,000? 70,000? Several aliens made gasping sounds. One alien with flower petals for a head started shaking. 60,000 killers running free on your world? Professor Velther asked with disbelief. They're not really killers, Hansal said quickly. They mostly hunt deer and other animals. They usually stay away from people. Usually? Thymon's gas form was now bright red with fear. What happens when they don't stay away? Hansal looked at his friends for help. They all looked as worried as he felt. Sometimes ... Sometimes they might attack a person, Eugene said very quietly. The reaction was immediate. Crix fell back into her chair with a loud clatter. 3 aliens at the back of the room activated emergency signals on their suits. Rala disappeared completely into her water tank. Attack people? Professor Velther's voice sounded like breaking glass. Your government allows animals to attack people? It doesn't happen very often, Wu Bin said, trying to calm everyone down. And we know how to protect ourselves. How? Crix asked from behind her arms. We ... We learn to be careful, High One said. We carry tools to scare them away. We travel in groups. You mean you go into the wild on purpose? Thymon asked with horror. Sometimes, Hansal said. For work or for fun. Fun? Half the class shouted at once. Professor Velther made a sound. Like wind whistling through a cave. Let me understand this correctly. Your people voluntarily enter areas where dangerous animals live freely. For entertainment. It's called camping, Eugene said weakly. Or hiking. And wolves are the most. Dangerous animals on your world? Rala asked. She had come back up to the top of her tank, but just barely. The 4 humans looked at each other. Hansal felt his stomach drop. No, he said quietly. Wolves are ... not the most dangerous. The classroom erupted in panicked sounds. Aliens were clicking, whistling, bubbling, and flashing different colors all at once. There are more dangerous animals? Crix shrieked. What could be more dangerous than pack-hunting killers? Thymon demanded. Eugene took a deep breath. Bears? Bears? Professor Velther repeated. They're bigger than wolves, Eugene explained. Much bigger and stronger. How much bigger? Rala whispered. A big bear can weigh as much as 4 or 5 people. Wu Bin said. An alien in the back row fainted. Its friends caught it before it hit the floor. And they also hunt people? Crix asked with a shaking voice. Not usually, Hansal said quickly. They mostly eat fish and plants. But if you surprise one, or if it's protecting its babies, ... It has babies? Thymon flickered wildly. The giant killers have babies? All animals have babies, I once said, then immediately regretted it. You mean there are baby giant killers running around too? Professor Velther asked. Baby bears are actually very small, Eugene said, trying to help, but they grow up to be giant killers. Crix pointed out. Well, yes, Eugene admitted, and then panic in the room was getting worse. More aliens were activating emergency systems. Some were calling for medical help. Others were trying to leave the classroom. Please, everyone stay calm, Professor Velther said, but the professor's voice was shaking too. How many bears live on your world? Maybe 400,000, Hansal said. A number hit the room like a physical blow. Several more aliens fainted. Thymon split into 3 separate gas clouds before pulling himself back together. 400,000? Rala squeaked. And they all live in the wild with no control systems? Crix asked. Yes, Wu Bin said. And your people go into the wild for fun? Professor Velther asked again. Yes, High One said. An alien with tentacles for. Arms started making a high-pitched whining sound. How are any of you still alive? The humans looked at each other. That was a very good question. We single quotes careful. Hansal offered. Careful? Thymon was now cycling through every color Hansal had ever seen. How can you be careful around 400,000 giant killers? We learn about them in school, Eugene said. We learn how to act around them. You teach your children about the giant killers? Crix asked with horror. We have to, High One said. So they know how to be safe. Your children go into the killer zones too? An alien with crystal spikes asked. Sometimes, Wu Bin said, with adults who know what they're doing. The class fell silent again. But this time, it was not the silence of shock. It was the silence of aliens trying to understand something that made no sense to them. Are there more dangerous animals? Rala finally asked in a tiny voice. The humans looked at each other again. They had not even talked about sharks yet. Or poisonous snakes, or disease-carrying insects, or any of the hundreds of other dangerous animals on Earth. Yes, Hansal said quietly. How many more? Professor Velther asked. A lot more, Eugene said. Thymon's gas form started to spread apart again. How do you people survive? How does your species still exist? We adapt, High One said simply. We learn. We help each other. You fight the animals? Crix asked. Sometimes, Wu Bin said, but mostly we avoid them. What if you can't avoid them? Rala asked. The humans were quiet for a moment. Then we do what we have to do, Hansal said finally. Professor Velther's crystal body was now glowing so bright it hurt to look at. I think ... I think we need to stop class for today. But we haven't talked about the aquatic animals yet, Hyujin said without thinking. Aquatic animals? Rala screamed and disappeared completely into her tank. Professor Velther made a sound like breaking crystal. Class dismissed. Everyone please exit in an orderly fashion. But the aliens were already running, floating, and slithering toward the door as fast as they could move. The four humans sat alone in the empty classroom, listening to the sound of panicked aliens in the hallway outside. Well, Wu Bin said finally, that could have gone better. The next day, Professor Velther called the four humans to a special meeting. The crystal teacher's body was dim and flickering with worry. 3 other professors sat in the room, along with 2 officials from the space station. We need to understand exactly what kind of world Earth is, Professor Velther said without any greeting. The other students are too frightened to return to class. Hansal looked at his friends. Crix had been found hiding in a supply closet that morning. Thymon had scattered himself across 3 different rooms and refused to come back together. Rala had sealed herself in her tank and would not come out. We didn't mean to scare anyone, Eugene said quietly. We know, said Professor Zephi, who looked like a tree made of metal. But we must understand the truth. Are there really hundreds of thousands of dangerous animals on your world? Yes, Aya one said. And your people choose to live among them? Ask Commander Thighs, a blue alien with 6 arms. We don't have a choice, Wu Bin said. It's our world. We have to live there. But surely you have safe cities? Professor Velther asked hopefully. Protected areas where the animals cannot go? The humans looked at each other. How could they explain that even human cities had dangers? Our cities are safer, Hansal said carefully. But they're not perfectly safe. What do you mean? Commander Thighs asked. High One decided to be completely honest. Maybe we should start from the beginning. Let us tell you what Earth is really like. Please do, Professor Velther said. High. One stood up and walked to the front of the room. Earth is what you would call a death world. The aliens made shocked sounds. First, let me tell you about our weather, High One continued. We have storms that can destroy entire cities. They are called hurricanes and tornadoes. How big are these storms? Professor Zephi asked. A hurricane can be 500 miles wide, High One said. The winds can blow at 200 miles per hour. That's impossible, Commander Thighs said. No planet has weather that violent. Earth does, Eugene said, standing up to join High One. We also have earthquakes that can split the ground open. They can knock down buildings and kill thousands of people. Earthquakes? Professor Velther's voice cracked like breaking ice. The ground shakes? Hansal explained. Sometimes for just a few seconds. Sometimes for several minutes. How often do these earthquakes happen? Professor HFY asked. Every day, somewhere on Earth, Wu Bin said. An alien professor with tentacles for hair started making a high-pitched humming sound. We also have volcanoes, Yujin continued. Mountains that explode and shoot melted rock into the sky. Active. Volcanoes? Commander Thies asked in disbelief. About 1,500 of them. Hansal said. The room fell silent except for the humming alien. And people live near these exploding mountains? Professor Velther asked. Millions of people, High One sighed. The soil around volcanoes is very good for growing food. You grow food in explosion zones? The tentacle-haired professor squeaked. It's complicated. Yujin said. Wu-Bin stood up and walked to join his friends. Should we tell them about the animals now? The aliens all leaned back in their chairs. We told you about wolves and bears yesterday, Wu Bin said. But there are many more dangerous animals. How many more? Commander Thies asked weakly. In the oceans, we have sharks, Hansal said. They are fish with hundreds of sharp teeth. They can grow to be 20 feet long. 20 feet of teeth fish? Professor Velther whispered. Some are bigger, Yujin added. The biggest sharks can be 40 feet long. The humming alien sound got higher and louder. On land, we have poisonous snakes, High One said. Their bite can kill a person in minutes. How many poisonous snakes? Professor HFY asked. About 600 different kinds, Wu Bin said. 600? Commander Thies stood up and started pacing. We also have spiders that can kill people, Hansal said. And insects that carry deadly diseases. And big cats that hunt humans, Yujin added. Lions, tigers, leopards, crocodiles. That can bite a person in half, High One said. Elephants that can step on people, Wu Bin said. Hippos that kill more humans than any other large animal, Hansal said. The aliens were staring at the humans with pure terror now. Stop, Professor Velther said weakly. Please stop. But the humans had started talking and could not stop now. All the truth was coming out. We have diseases that have no cure, Yujin said. Viruses that spread from person to person and kill millions. We have deserts where people die from heat, High One said. And frozen places where people die from cold. We have poisonous plants, Wu Bin said. And toxic gases that come from the ground. We have areas with deadly radiation, Hansal said. Places where humans cannot go, or they will die. Commander Thies stopped pacing and sat down heavily. This is not possible. No species could survive on such a world. But we do survive, Yujin said quietly. We have survived for thousands of years. How? Professor Velther asked. How is that possible? The humans looked at each other. How could? They explained human nature to these aliens who had never faced real danger. We learn, High One said finally. We adapt. We make tools. What kind of tools? Professor HFY asked. Tools to protect ourselves, Wu Bin said. Weapons to fight dangerous animals. Machines to predict dangerous weather. Weapons? Commander. Thies repeated. Things that can hurt or kill, Hansal explained. The room became completely quiet. Even the humming aliens stopped humming. You make things designed to kill? Professor Velther asked with horror. We have to, Yujin said. Sometimes it's the only way to protect ourselves. But ... But that means ... Commander Thies started to say, then stopped. What? High One asked. That means you can kill, Professor HFY whispered. The humans realized what the aliens were thinking. These peaceful creatures had never hurt another living thing. They had never even thought about violence. And now they were sitting in a room with 4 beings who came from a world where violence was sometimes necessary. "We don't want to kill," Hansal said quickly. "We only do it to protect ourselves. You have killed animals?" The tentacle-haired professor asked. "Some of us have," Wu Bin said honestly. "Have you killed other humans?" Commander Thighs asked very quietly. The question hung in the air like poison gas. "Our species has fought wars," High One said finally. "Yes, humans have killed other humans." The reaction was immediate and terrible. All the aliens activated their emergency systems at once. Alarms started ringing throughout the room. Security officers rushed in. "Wait!" Yujin shouted over the noise. "We're not dangerous. We're peaceful." "You just admitted you can kill your own species," Professor Velther shouted back. "That's in the past," Hansal yelled. "We've learned to be better." But the aliens were not listening anymore. They were too frightened. Security officers surrounded the 4 humans. More alarms were ringing in the hallway. "Please," High One said as calmly as she could. "We came here to learn. We came here for peace." Commander Thighs held up one hand. The alarm stopped ringing. "Are you saying your people no longer fight wars?" "We still have conflicts," Wu Bin said honestly. "But we try to solve them without violence." "Try?" Professor Zephyhi asked. "Most of the time we succeed," Yujin said. The aliens looked at each other with worried expressions. "So you are a species that comes from a death world," Professor Velther said slowly. "You have survived by learning to fight and kill. And now you want to join the galactic community." "Yes," Hansal said simply. "Why should we trust you?" Commander Thighs asked. The humans thought about this question. Why should these peaceful aliens trust a species of survivors from a death world? "Because," High One said finally, "we survived our world by learning to work together. We learned that cooperation is stronger than fighting. We learned that peace is better than war. We learned these lessons the hard way," Yujin added, "by making mistakes and learning from them. We want to share what we've learned," Wu Ben said. "And we want to learn from you too." The room was quiet for a long moment. "What else haven't you told us about Earth?" Professor Velther asked finally. The humans looked at each other again. "A lot," Hansal said. 3 days passed before the aliens were calm enough to meet with the humans again. During those 3 days, news about the Deathworlders spread throughout the entire space station. Some aliens were terrified and wanted the humans sent away. Others were curious and wanted to learn more. Hansal and his friends spent the time in their rooms, reading reports about themselves on the station's news network. The headlines were dramatic. "Deathworld species among us," and "Students from Planet of Killers." "This is not what we wanted," Yujin said sadly as they sat in Hansal's room. "I know," Hansal replied, "but maybe it's better that they know the truth." On the 4th day, Professor Velther called them back to the classroom. But this time, the room was different. Security barriers had been installed around the human seating area. Medical teams waited outside. Only a few brave alien students had returned to class. Krix was there, but she sat as far away as possible. Thymen had come back together, but kept changing colors nervously. Rala stayed deep in her water tank, with only her eyes showing. "I have spent 3 days researching your species," Professor Velther announced as the humans took their seats. "What I have learned is both terrifying and amazing." The crystal body glowed with a mix of colors the humans had never seen before. "Your species has survived extinction events that would have destroyed any other intelligent life," Professor Velther continued. "Ice ages, plagues, wars, natural disasters. And yet you are still here. We're survivors, High One said simply. More than that, Professor Velther said. You are the only species in known space that has learned to thrive on a death world. Every other intelligent species developed on safe worlds with stable climates and peaceful evolution. An alien with flower petals for a head raised one petal. Professor, how can we be sure they are not dangerous to us? Professor Velther looked at the 4 humans. That is what we are here to determine. Hansal, I want you to answer a question. Honestly. Okay, Hansal said. Could you kill me if you wanted to? The room became completely silent. Every alien stared at Hansal with fear. Han-Sol thought about the question carefully. Professor Velther was made of crystal, but the crystal looked delicate. A human could probably break it if they tried. Probably, Hansal said quietly, but I would never want to. Why not? Professor Velther asked. Because you are my teacher, Hansal said. Because you have been kind to us. Because killing is wrong, unless you have no other choice. What would? Make you feel like you had no other choice? Crix asked from across the room. Eugene answered instead. If someone was trying to hurt people we care about, if someone was trying to hurt you, you would kill to protect us? Thyman asked with surprise. His gas form was now a confused mix of yellow and blue. If we had to, Wubin said, but we would try many other things first. Professor Velther's body glowed brighter. This is what I learned in my research. Humans have the capacity for violence, but they prefer peace. They fight when they must, but they choose cooperation when they can. But they're still dangerous, the flower petal alien said. Yes, Professor Velther agreed. They are dangerous. But they are dangerous in the way that a parent is dangerous to someone who threatens their child. They are dangerous in the way that a protector is dangerous to those who would cause harm. Rala's head poked up a little more from her tank. Are you saying they would protect us? I think they would, Professor Velther said. But let us ask them, humans, if this station were attacked by hostile forces, what would you do? The 4 humans looked at each other. They had never talked about this possibility. We would help defend it, High One said finally. Even though most beings here are afraid of you? Professor Velther asked. Yes, Hansal said. This is our home. Now, too, how would you help defend it? Crix asked. She sounded curious instead of afraid for the first time. However we could, Eugene said. We know about fighting and strategy. We could teach others or fight ourselves if needed. You would fight for people who fear you? Thyman asked. Fear is normal, Wubin said. People fear what they don't understand. But fear and hate are different things. You fear us, but you don't hate us. How do you know the difference? Rala asked. Because you're still here, High One said gently. Because you're asking questions instead of just running away. Professor Velther moved closer to the humans. The security barriers were still there, but the professor seemed less afraid. I want to try something, Professor Velther said. I want to learn what humans call survival skills. Will you teach me? The humans were surprised. You want to learn from us? Hansal asked. Yes, if I understand correctly, survival skills are not just about fighting. They are about staying alive in dangerous situations. That's right, Eugene said. Most survival skills are about avoiding danger, not fighting it. Show me, Professor Velther said. U-Jin stood up slowly and walked to the front of the room. The first rule of survival is awareness. Always know what is around you. She looked around the classroom carefully. I can see all the exits. I know where everyone is sitting. I notice that Thyman changes colors when he's nervous, so I can tell how he's feeling. That's useful, Professor Velther said with interest. The second rule is preparation, Wubin said, joining Eugene. Have a plan for different situations. Know where to go if there's a fire. Know where to go if there's an emergency. The third rule is cooperation, I once said. Work together. Help each other. Alone we are weak. Together we are strong. And the fourth rule, Hansal said, completing the group, is adaptation. When things change, change with them. Don't panic. Think. Find new solutions. Professor Velther's body glowed with fascination. These are not rules for violence. These are rules for living wisely. Exactly, Eugene said. Most of human survival is about being smart, not being strong. Crix raised her arm tentatively. Could ... Could you teach me these rules? The humans smiled. Of course, Hansal said. Me too, said Thyman, turning a hopeful green color. And me, bubbled Rala from her tank. Soon, other alien students were asking to learn as well. The flower petal alien wanted to know about awareness. A crystal spike alien asked about preparation. Professor Velther watched all of this with growing excitement. This is remarkable. You are teaching them to be stronger and safer, not more dangerous. That's what survival is really about, High One explained. Being safe, being prepared, taking care of each other. As the class continued, something wonderful happened. The aliens began to relax around the humans. They asked questions about Earth without fear. They listened to stories about human cooperation and courage. Crix asked about how humans work together during natural disasters. Thyman wanted to know about human exploration and discovery. Rala asked about how humans protect their families and communities. I think I understand now, Professor Velther said as the class was ending. You are not dangerous because you want to hurt others. You are dangerous because you have learned to protect what matters to you. Yes, Hansal said. That's exactly right. And what matters to you now? Crix asked. Eugene looked around the classroom at all the alien faces. They were no longer filled with fear. Instead, they showed curiosity, respect, and even friendship. All of you, Eugene said simply. This place, this community we're building together. Professor Velther's body glowed with the warmest light the humans had ever seen. Then we have nothing to fear from you. No, Wuben said. You don't. Over the following weeks, the humans became teachers as well as students. They taught survival skills and emergency preparedness. They shared stories of human cooperation and problem solving. The aliens taught them as well. They showed the humans the beauty of peaceful civilizations. They demonstrated the power of technology used for protection instead of destruction. Crix learned to be more aware of her surroundings and became the best emergency coordinator on the station. Thyman learned about preparation and started helping other students plan for different situations. Ryla learned about adaptation and became known for finding creative solutions to problems. Professor Velther changed the entire curriculum. The class became about survival and cooperation across species. Students from all over the galaxy came to learn from both the peaceful aliens and the humans from the Death World. You know what's funny? Eugene said to her friends one day as they watched their alien classmates practicing emergency procedures. What? Hansal asked. We thought our secret was that Earth is dangerous, Eugene said. But that wasn't really the secret at all. What was the secret then? High One asked. Eugene smiled as she watched Crix helping a smaller alien student with awareness exercises. The secret was that we learned to be kind and gentle despite coming from a dangerous world. We learned to protect others instead of just protecting ourselves. And now they're learning the same thing, Wuben said proudly. Professor Velther approached their group. I have an announcement, the professor said. The Galactic Academy wants to establish an Earth Studies program. They want humans to teach survival and cooperation to students from across the galaxy. The four friends looked at each other with excitement. Would you be interested in staying here as instructors? Professor Velther asked. Yes, they all said. Together Dot, as Hansal looked around the classroom filled with aliens and humans working together. He realized something important.